People have an annoying habit of saying that the book is always better, even if the movie version makes $1 billion. And while some changes were indeed unnecessary, there were some that genuinely improved what was written on the original panels. It might sound like sacrilege, but damn it if it's not the truth. With that in mind, this is Will from WhatCulture.com, and this is 10 MCU changes from the original comics that were completely justified. Number 10. Yondu is the daddy. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Obviously, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 changed Peter Quill's father to Ego the Living Planet, but just as big a change came in the shape of Peter's relationship with Yondu. In the comics, Peter was raised on Earth and never meets Yondu. They actually live 1,000 years apart, which tends to put a dent in any relationship. In the movies, Yondu raises Quill as his son. That was a far better choice for making Peter's backstory interesting, and it gave us one of the most devastating moments in MCU history when Yondu sacrifices himself to save his adoptive son. That alone is worth all the changes made to the characters of the Guardians franchise. Number 9. Nick Fury is the founder of the Avengers. When you've got a name as big as Samuel L. Jackson, it makes sense that you actually give him something to do in your movies. That must be why Marvel brought him in for his Iron Man post-credits cameo, which foreshadowed the upcoming Avengers movie. That also required a change from the comics, in which the Avengers are brought together much more organically. When Loki sends the Hulk on a rampage, Thor, Iron Man, Ant-Man, and the Wasp all show up to stop him and form the supergroup. With Fury, it was a lot less random, and it gave the group someone to look up to, reinforcing their vulnerabilities alongside their heroism. Number 8. Not making Black Widow a super soldier. The flash of a Black Widow origin we got in Avengers Age of Ultron left out the fact that she was a super soldier just like Captain America and Bucky. Yes, unlike in the comics, in the MCU, Black Widow is all natural, baby. It's much more compelling to believe that the Avengers actually have more vulnerable, relatable members, so this was the right choice for the MCU to make. And it's her humanity that helps balance the Hulk's monstrosity in Age of Ultron, so the change actually served a narrative purpose as well. Number 7. The invention of Phil Coulson. Before the first Iron Man movie, there was no such person as Agent Phil Coulson. Still, he's gone on to be a hugely popular character and massively influential, not least because he now runs S.H.I.E.L.D. And it's impossible to think of an existing character who could have managed all that so well in his place. After all, it was Coulson who was a superhero fanboy, and that simply wouldn't have worked nearly as well if his role had been taken by someone who already existed and came with pre-existing expectations. Number 6. No Hulk alien romance. Thor Ragnarok. Even though Thor Ragnarok was announced as partly adapting Planet Hulk, it quickly became clear that it wouldn't be anything like a pure adaptation, and when the film came out, there was nothing of Hulk's arc as it is in the comics. He isn't married, he doesn't impregnate that wife of his, and while he is adored, he's not the savior of Sakaar. These changes to Hulk's character were actually a great evolution, even if we missed out on a pure adaptation of Planet Hulk. Sure, that story was great, but introducing a wife for the Hulk when he's not afforded his own movie might have got a bit messy, and having her die would have compromised the tone of the action comedy style way too much. Number 5. The twins aren't mutants. Avengers Age of Ultron. With Marvel unable to talk about mutants, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver were presented as science experiments, empowered by Hydra tinkering with an Infinity Stone. And while it might be confused somewhat by the arrival of the X-Men to the MCU, reimagining the pair as products of the stone was a smart change. It not only added drama to the Age of Ultron events by having them actively choose to become weapons in their quest to gain vengeance against the Avengers, but it also showcased exactly how powerful the Mind Stone could be, which is a big deal when Infinity War needs them to be talked up. Number 4. The Vision's origin. In the comics, Vision's mind was based on the brain patterns of Wonder Man, a superhero whose body was also used by Ultron when he was created. That would obviously have posed a problem in the MCU, as Wonder Man was never introduced, so they went with repurposing Jarvis, Iron Man's English-accented AI assistant. It makes sense in the narrative of the MCU, as it more closely follows Tony Stark's Frankenstein-like arc. When he unwittingly created Ultron, he was flooded with creator guilt, and Jarvis becoming Vision and defeating Ultron effectively re-established balance in that respect. Number 3. Tony's arc reactor, Iron Man. In the comics and up until the end of Iron Man 3, one of Tony Stark's defining characteristics is the fact that the arc reactor that powers his suit is sited in the middle of his chest as a means to keep shrapnel from shredding his heart. But unlike in the comics, in Iron Man 3, Tony was somehow able to get over the fact that the shrapnel in his chest would kill him if removed, and simply got a good enough surgeon to remove it. It might have seemed something of a cop-out, but it represented the end of a clever, complex arc focused on Stark's morbid fears of mortality and vulnerability, and it was a good change to make to bring some closure to the Iron Man trilogy. Number 2. No deaths in Civil War. When it was revealed that Marvel was going to adapt Civil War, fans immediately suspected that it meant we would get to see the MCU's first real bloodlust, and both Goliath and Captain America were dead by the time the dust settled. The MCU version, however, left out all those deaths. It might have looked like an attempt to make the story less troubling for kids, but it actually made sense to focus on the role of Captain America, Iron Man, and Bucky much more, and to have the Superhero Registration Act tie back to all the previous collateral damage the Avengers unwittingly caused elsewhere in the MCU movies. All that a death as big as Captain America's would have done is devalue that message. Number 1. The Mandarin, Iron Man 3. For some, Iron Man 3 will forever be the film that messed with a classic character, the Mandarin, for the sake of a jokey payoff and some misdirection. But in reality, the comic book version of the Mandarin was a lame, racist stereotype that had no place in the contemporary MCU, and reinventing him to introduce the idea of corporate manufactured terrorism was a brilliant counterpoint to Tony Stark's invention of corporate manufactured heroism. And honestly, the revelation that this supposedly fearsome figure is just a sleazy actor on a job was one of the funniest moments in the MCU.
Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe below, and if you're looking for more content like this, then try a few things that are floating about around my ears. It might be fun. I can't promise it though, but it might be.